Guys, welcome. This week we're talking about story, or as we also can call it, narrative. This is a part that we were lacking, kind of like maybe a little later in the process. But I actually found a guy eventually that helped us get some story into this project. That was called Ernst. The guy was a narrative designer, and he kind of helped us make things in the game say or mean something. So think about environments that tell stuff, think about why we would create certain environments. So not so long after that, we also needed someone that was full-time on this and maybe even implement stuff like narrative or write a complete plot for what's going on in Deliver Us the Moon, and that was Niels. So in this video you will see Niels and Ernst talk about what drives them to make story, or the Deliver Us the Moon story. Enjoy.
It's up to you now. Bring the power transmission back online. You are our last chance. Humanity's last chance. It's possible that the problem is rooted deeper than we expect. If so, we need you to head outside and make your way to the Tombo power facility. It's a difficult, long stretch. Halfway down, check into the Reinhold crater station. It's a safe haven connected to the MPT lifeline. It might give you insight into the state of the energy transmission.
Hi, I'm Niels. I'm the current narrative designer for Deliver Us the Moon.
Hi, I'm XOne. I'm a writer as well, narrative designer, though more in an editorial capacity at the moment.
Alright guys, so what has been your inspiration for the narrative in Deliver Us the Moon? And yeah, what has that been?
Well, XOne actually started to develop the universe for Deliver Us the Moon. So probably you can tell us about the first inspiration.
It's sort of rooted in a whole strain of paranoid science fiction films of the 70s, like Silent Running, which were all about environmental collapse and energy crises, and it sort of went from there. It sort of wrote itself because it's it's something that hasn't been mined for a while for good content, so it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Okay. And you know, what inspired you guys to get into the video game industry as narrative designers? Like, where did that come from? Is it a love of books?
Yeah. Why don't you go first?
Well, for me personally, it was there were actually a couple of games that did it really well that I was surprised that they delivered such an interesting narrative. I think around the time of Heavy Rain and The Last of Us, there were like a couple of plots that I didn't expect coming from games because they were quite serious and emotional, and until that point it was all about these big dudes with flashing swords and and shooting guns, which kind of took me off guard, and I was like, okay, we can really like tell some emotional stories, and also about our current society that hadn't been done until that point. So I was really surprised when it came out.
I sort of stumbled sideways into the game industry. I've always been interested in writing and narratives. I studied to become an animator originally, but I was far too slow for that. And through a few schools, I sort of by accident ended up in a sort of game design course, which was called Design for Virtual Theater and Games, which introduced me to the industry and especially the untapped possibilities of an interactive medium for storytelling. Right, and now I'm here. I'm still not entirely sure what happened, but it was something along the lines of that.
That's something I shared. Yeah.
All right, guys. So you know, what is what is the process for developing a good story? You know, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. Have you ever heard of Kurt Vonnegut?
Yeah.
Excellent writer. Niels looks like he's never heard of him.
No, I don't know.
Well, for a story guy, that bothers me a little bit, but we'll look past it.
Slaughterhouse 5?
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, it's his famous book. Well, he has a chart that says that every single story ever can be placed in this chart. And I'm actually, you guys should take a look at it after this, actually. But yeah, so what is your process for developing a good story? And what happens when you're done with a, you know, with a good part of the story? Like, what happens then?
Personally, I really like to invest a lot of time in the world itself, and to start building the foundation of what you're gonna actually build your plot upon. So it takes quite a lot of time to get that going, but it sets the first rules for the universe that you're creating. And when that's set up, when you have your first rules, you have some more friction in the universe, so you kind of know which tension points are interesting to place characters in, and to let it be told by the characters when the world is done, so that it's not really about the actual plot that you try to convey, that it's kind of a one-off world that you're creating for just one story, but it's creating a universe that multiple stories can be told in, and that it's just about the characters that are taking place into that world. And that's, for me personally, a really nice writing process. Although I also strongly believe that everyone has their own process, and it's not really like set in stone what the way to go is.
Do you differ, Ernst? Do you have a different process?
Yes, probably, but essentially I agree. It depends on the project, and this game is very context heavy, so you know, the details of the context matter. Before you know what story exactly you want to tell within that, you have to know what the parameters of the world are, what the context is, what the themes are. And for other projects which are more character driven, the opposite approach works as well. But it's always, as far as I'm concerned, dictated by context, okay, rather than one unified approach.
Okay. I've got a couple of Q&A questions for the two of you superstars over here. other than Deliver Us the Moon, what game do you think has a great story?
I've always really liked Knights of the Old Republic 2, especially because Star Wars stories have always been very, you know, simple or classical, or binary in their approach with good and evil, and that was the first time that I saw a video game do so much with you know, what was it, essentially set content, but change the entire story and context, and introduce a lot of shades of grey. That's probably the best example.
Is that also one of your favorite games as well?
It is. It's a terrible game, by the way. It's unfinished. It didn't work very well, but I have that with a lot of games. They're all broken, but you can see the intent. Yeah. And it could have been so good, and it almost was.
And that's important too, right?
Yeah, that's important.
Keep that in mind, people out there, yeah, when you Deliver Us the Moon. And Niels?
For me personally, it's also really well known throughout the office, by the way, that I really liked Witcher 3. It's simply because they put a lot of work in creating a really good narrative. There are side quests where you normally have, in such a big game, it's really easy to make a lot of fetch quests and that kind of stuff, but then at a point that you think like, oh, this is fetch quest number 5, you get this really, really invested storyline of a side character, and you really stop for a moment and to play the game and think about it, because it was so gripping and was really emotional. And I think the guys at CD Projekt Red did a really good job with that one, and that's definitely to date like my favorite game if I have to pick one.
Okay. And you love the story as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, great. And okay, favorite author? You story guys, favorite authors? They don't have to be in the video game world. No,
it's probably Alan Moore, who did a lot of comic books.
I'm a huge fan myself.
Yeah. Well, that was the first author, as far as I was concerned, it showed so much scope and differing approaches, which were dictated by project rather than by personal preference, which was very inspiring to me. It's inspired.
Do you have a Alan Moore work in particular? For example, I love The Watchmen.
I love The Watchmen. Yeah, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't read it.
That's it's definitely the most fun one. It's the one where he'd already done Watchmen, People from Dead, all those things that were considered you know, medium defining, and those were more sort of supposed to be fun, but he uses all those contexts of established literary characters, and they collided very well, not unpredictable. You know, in retrospect, they're all very predictable. They're all very well thought out, but they're surprising stories.
Okay. Cool. Niels?
Lately I've been re-getting into George Orwell. After recommendation, I really didn't read it yet, like 1984,
Sure.
which is quite
The year of my birth.
relevant.
There we go.
There we go, yeah. Yeah, it's like the way he kind of sets up universes is really interesting, and the parallels to our society, and that's something that like probably like most of the people watching also read his books, but it's for me it was really defining and seeing like how can you set up a really good world with their rules, and how can you develop these strict rules and stick to them and try to break them within your book and within the narrative, that it creates an interesting plot line by just making that, like creating those storylines from the world that you set, and it's not particular about the characters that you develop in beforehand.
George Orwell, a phenomenal author, and also the author of Animal Farm.
Yes.
Exactly.
And there you go. I also read. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah. So now we got a little, you know, some these questions go deep now. Niels, how long did it take you to grow your beautiful ginger ponytail?
Oh, that took a lot of time. Not as much. I haven't cut it, I believe, for 2 years.
And why do you always keep it in a ponytail?
Because it's easier. When you're writing, it's really annoying when your hair kind of falls onto the side. And
Very honest answer.
yeah, and so I keep it up. So I also used to draw a lot, so that's really annoying when you're trying to draw and then the hair is kind of in the way, and then you kind of have to like keep the curtains away when you're drawing, and you want to use this hand to hold the paper, and it's just really annoying. Yeah.
Okay, and Ernst, I got a couple for you. First of all, this one just came to me because every time you come to the office, people out there need to know Ernst has a style unto himself. I don't know where you buy your clothes or what thrift shop you go to, but you always look like a gangster. So I want to know, where do you get those clothes? And you did not bring your red velvet jacket today, but that is a staple of you as well.
Yeah, but I'm sorry.
It's hot.
I can't sustain that. These temperatures. I do miss the pocket space. And where do I get those? Well, yeah, here and there. You know, far more orthodox places than you'd think.
Really?
Yeah.
That one came to me from the Orthodox place of 1982. Your dad's closet, perhaps?
No. It's there is some thrift shop stuff.
Okay,
some
cool.
Stuff that's hard to get, like longer coats and stuff. But most of it is really just your run-of-the-mill shops.
Okay, very interesting. And then my last question for you is, you know, there's been talk that you look like a young George R.R. Martin. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's not particularly kind to George, but I'll let that.
You're
slide.
too kind. Fair enough. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to everybody. Please say goodbye to everybody, and thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
It's horrible.
It was disgusting. I literally, I couldn't help it. I was like, yo, no. I'm not going in this bathroom stall, man. Get out of your fucking mind. Alright.
Oh, God.
Is it on?
Yeah.
It's already recording?
Yeah, so we heard you talking about
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh. That's actually very funny. Okay, yeah.
Not about who, but
Yeah. True.
it's no one of who can enjoy.
Mucho bueno. Okay, we did 3D modeling
Yeah.
for sure.